All right. Hey, we're here with Andy Webster, and just want to ask him a few questions so that we can understand what he does. So, Andy, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do in China?
Yep, my name's Andy Webster, 41 years old, believe it or not. And I've been in China for 4 years, have a travel agency over there, and we mainly do hiking, mountain biking, and horseback riding in kind of the Himalaya type mountains.
Okay. Which province are you in?
We're in the Yunnan.
Okay, in Yunnan province. All right. And can you tell me how you got interested in China? How did a guy from Michigan end up running a tour industry in?
It's a good question. I lived in Romeo, and I was reading The Economist magazine, and just kind of looking where the future is going. I like to think about where things are going, and I just kept on reading China, China this, China that, China the other thing. And I have 3 children, and I was thinking for myself and for them, how can we set our family up for a win in the future? And I was looking at how Detroit was going. This was back, early 2000s, and I was thinking the best thing would be to take our family over there and start anew, just like many people did around the turn of the century here, and start a new life.
Very interesting. And where in China have you been, and where do you currently live? You said you're in Yunnan now, but where else have you traveled in China?
We've traveled up to several of the other provinces, up to Xining, Sichuan, Chengdu, Shanghai. You guys know about that place. I've also taken a train all the way across the country from Kunming to Shanghai.
Okay.
That was pretty cool. So I got to see the whole country.
Cool. Could you tell us a story that kind of highlights some of the cultural differences between China and the U.S.?
Sure. One that really is forefront in my mind is we had a house helper. It's very typical in China to have a house helper with daily activities. It really gives them an income. This girl was 19 years old from the village, only had a 6th grade education, so this was her way of making money. Mm-hmm. I had forgotten to give her salary one month, and I just totally forgot. You guys might have been talking about this idea of mianzi, or face, or embarrassment. This whole thing is very important in the Chinese culture. Well, she didn't get paid. What is she going to do? Well, what she did is she went to a third-party friend, a friend of both of ours, and said, I didn't get paid. What's happening here? So this person talked to me, and then I paid her. And she was all embarrassed, didn't tell me that she did anything. Mm-hmm. But in order for there to not be a confrontation, she went through a third party. And that's something that's very typical in China.
I've experienced that too, where they're very used to dealing with the third party. So maybe to find a boyfriend or girlfriend or lots of jobs, it often comes through not directly through them talking to someone, but through a third party. Mm-hmm. Could you tell me maybe one big similarity between the U.S. and China, and then maybe another big difference that you notice?
One of the similarities that I see is just a real love for pursuing family, and I think around the holidays we have this ideal that we would all strive for a happy family. It might not always be the case, but I think it's something that a lot of the Chinese would like to pursue during their Chunjie, Spring Festival, is that we want to be in harmonious relationship with our family and our community. And I think that's something that us Americans pursue as well, to probably a similar degree.
Sure.
A difference as far as a cultural difference, or just an average difference?
Just something, a huge difference that you notice between the U.S. and China, maybe between living here and living there.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest differences that I've seen in my time there, although China is changing so fast, I mean, year by year it is actually changing. The biggest difference that I've seen, there's been so many. Cars. I think cars. When I think about it, when I first got there, didn't see a lot of cars. Although my city has 7 million, the roads were smaller and there wasn't a lot. Right now, my city puts about 500 cars on the road a day. And so I've noticed that is like something that's been a difference. And now how they're dealing with traffic, I think, is they're trying, how does this work in China? We're not used to it. Yeah. And traffic jams, I'm not used to it. I'm used to a 4-way stop, and that's about as big a traffic jam as I'm used to.
Sure. Well, I mean, if you add 500 cars a day, that's 180,000 cars a year that you're adding. Mm-hmm. And I think China, even in Beijing and Shanghai, has a lot of issues with engineering their traffic flow and kind of their city management. I think that is still kind of a lot of they need to make a lot of progress there.
That's right. It's true.
Yeah. How are your wife and kids doing at learning Chinese? What kind of methods do you guys learn, and how's that process going?
Yeah, they're doing great. We put them in a bilingual Chinese, English kindergarten. We were trying to get them streamlined into that, building friendships. Of course, the best thing is just straight up conversation with people. It might be embarrassing. I am personally extroverted. My wife's introverted, so I don't have a problem fumbling over words and just making a total idiot of myself in the middle of the street. My wife's not so much. She has a private tutor. I had a private tutor as well, but I've really found that for me, I'm always trying to push myself into a situation where I need to talk or I have to talk, or not relying on a friend that knows more than I do, but really just getting myself into a place of uncomfortability and then just learning from there. And usually they're gracious and try to help me out as much as they can.
Yeah, I found that as well. I try to encourage my students the same thing, that everybody makes mistakes, especially with a second language. And so the more that you can push yourself to be independent and to speak, the more you're going to remember, the more you'll learn. Mm-hmm. What do you miss most about living in America?
Jet's Pizza. Definitely Jet's Pizza. I miss family. You know, that's the hard part about being away. But Skype and Facebook and these things help. But really, myself and a lot of folks that I talk with overseas, it's just having friends, sometimes fellow countrymen, Americans, that you can kind of have your inside jokes about different things.
Sure.
Just relating in that way.
Yeah. What's one thing that you enjoy about living in China?
I just love the integration of life there, where you can wake up in the morning, you can go to market, and you can buy your vegetables, and then you go from the vegetable guy that you know to the butcher, and he cuts the meat right in front of you. There's a chicken there. You pick out the chicken you want. They cut it up for you. You go home, and you have your meal. And then after your meal, you go out for your sambu, and you have your walk, and you meet with the people there in your community. And it seems like it's integrated, and you know your surroundings, you're familiar with your surroundings, and you're really attached to them.
Very nice. So the audience that's going to be watching this is, teenage American students. If adult Andy right now could talk to teenage Andy 20 years ago, 25 years ago, what's one thing you think you might tell teenage Andy?
Well, if I was going to this school, I would do whatever it would take to get me on that trip to China, because I think that would be not only great for getting to know some of my fellow classmates, but to know the world around me, and certainly China's a big part of that world now. And I wish at that age that I would have dropped my Spanish class and went full on for the Chinese. I'd be way ahead of the game, and then also just to do what it would take to get a plane ticket to go over there, because it's something to read about it, to see it in a movie. But when you smell the smells and you see the sights firsthand, they can never be unseen. They can never be unsmelled.
Yeah. Yeah, the smells. We talked to the students that are going on about the smells a little bit. You guys are going to experience that in about a month, and so hopefully those are going to stay with you forever. What was the hardest part of moving to China?
I think the biggest difficulty in that whole process was downsizing. We got a lot of stuff in America. Mm-hmm. I lived up in Romeo. We had a garage full, a house full. And now we had to get it down to really 17 bags is what we took to China on ThinAir. And getting our whole house down to these 17 duffel bags was a huge process. And it was hard making decisions. What do you want in life? What are you going to take with you? What stays here? What comes with you? That was hard.
When you look at this classroom, compare the size of this classroom to the size of the place that you're living in China, and kind of give me a comparison.
I actually live in a Tibetan house in the village, so I don't live in a city, which is kind of unusual for being in China, but my house is actually a little bit bigger than this classroom. It's a huge Tibetan home, but the typical Chinese home would just be, well, a lot of people just have a small one room, with no kitchen, no shower, no nothing, just a little cubicle.
Right, so you could probably fit, 6 typical Chinese houses in here?
Easy. Yeah.
Good. How does the Chinese Communist government affect your daily life? Can you give me one way? When I talk to people about China, a lot of people have the idea of the Chinese Communist government just looming over everywhere, kind of like a dark cloud. Can you just give me an idea of what it actually feels like to live in China, with a government that is communist?
Yeah, that's interesting. I have to perceive and remember that I am a guest in the country. As much as I'm at home here in the States, I'm a guest over there. They hold the visa, and they can take that away and ask me to leave at any time. So I have to, when I'm going doing stuff, I have to remember I'm a guest here, and at any time they can ask me to leave. I have found personally since the day I got there in the country, they have been very for me. They want to see me succeed. I have not had problems with paperwork. I have not had problems with bureaucracy. If you do all the things that they ask you to do, and there'll be a lot of them, okay? If you do them correctly, then you're making them look good, you're making their work easier, and life's going to be good for you. And so, although, yeah, there's people, watching your moves, and there's a sense of bureaucracy and involvement on small things, such as when I go home to China after this trip, as soon as I go into my village, I have to register with the police. Here, you can just go and do what you want and go home, or go out to if you're going to go down to Florida, you don't have to register at a hotel in Florida. Whereas in China, if I go out from my city to another city, I have to register with the government there so they know where I am and can track where my family is going. So
yeah, that's a good description. Have you noticed any popular American trends that are also catching on in China?
Yeah, the Apple products are huge. iPhone, everybody wants one. There's a bazillion fake ones out there you can buy on Taobao. And Apple is huge. And I would say American movies and TV shows are more and more getting popularized over there.
Any other fun China stories you'd like to share?
Oh gosh, there's a bazillion of them. I think it's kind of crude, but it's kind of interesting. This is a little bit of that cultural difference. I remember sitting at the bus stop one day and seeing a girl in high heels wearing Prada, probably had a Coach, a purse, and she had her finger way up her nose. It's fine over there. You have no problems with this kind of thing. And for us, actually blowing a nose, they think it's disgusting. Why in the world would you blow, your nose and then put it in your pocket? They just think that's just silly.
It's a different view on bodily functions. I think bodily functions in China are a whole different discussion. Good. Well, Andy, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming in. I think this is going to be a good glimpse, a good perspective on China. I appreciate your time.